Public Library. My name is Sarah Colley. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator here. Woo, indeed. Thank you. And I love being able to have all of you guys here at the library. We are kicking off our summer-ish, since this is one of our first programs in June. And we are very excited to have Sean here again at the library. This is his third time performing at the Great Falls Public Library, and it's just so exciting to have him here. I look forward to it every single year, and so we're stoked to have him back again. The library is here to connect people in knowledge, and we do that in a variety of different ways. And guess what? Summer reading starts on Friday. So get ready, because we also have adult summer reading again this year. So the theme this year is Unearth a Story. And I'm going to front load you guys with all of this information, so at the end of the program, we can just kind of relax with the cool tunes that Sean's going to play for us today, and we don't have to worry about me rambling again. So I'm just going to front load you guys with this, and then we can just end the program on a very positive note. Not that what I have to, anyways. Unearth a Story is the summer reading theme for this year, which is really exciting. So guess what that means? Dinosaurs. There's so much more than just dinosaurs as well. So we are going to be doing the adult summer reading, which is what I'll talk about for you guys. It is a bingo sheet again this year. If you just sign up for it, then you get entered into winning a $25 Shields gift card. If you do a one bingo line in any direction, you can come back in and get a tote bag that has a dinosaur on it. And it's lime green, because who doesn't love that, right? And we are partnering with Teriyaki Madness this year to do their form of the Book It program, which if we all remember from Pizza Hut back in the day. So if you do one line of the bingo sheet, you also get a free junior bowl at Teriyaki Madness with the purchase of a regular bowl, but that's fine because it's still delicious food. So thank you, Teriyaki Madness, for sponsoring our summer reading program. And then the final prize I'm really excited about this because I just purchased everything. I just purchased a whole bunch of stuff from the Museum of the Rockies. And so there's cups and ornaments and books and so many different types of swag that I'll put into baskets. So if you black out the bingo sheet, you get entered into winning one of those free baskets. All of them are unique, and then you also get entered into winning a $350 Shields gift card. So thank you to all of our sponsors for that, but that is super exciting. That starts on June 5th. On June 6th, we are bringing Julian Brave Noise Cat out to the library to do his author talk on We Survived the Night, which is his debut memoir. And then that evening over at the Lewis and Clark Center, we are showing his Academy Award nominated film, Sugarcane, which is about the Canadian boarding schools. Julian will be here for the entire thing. We will have great conversation with him during the entire program and afternoon, so please join us for that as well. Now, anyways, we're getting back to what we're actually here for. So, fantastic! We did all of that, and I feel like I only took 3 breaths. We're doing great. Sean is returning to the museum, or to the library, yay! Sean is going to be performing the Kora, which is a 21-string West African harp, which is this amazing instrument right here. During today's program, he will explain how he studied the Kora, how he got those opportunities, a little bit about how creating one works, and then also about some of the traditional music that was played and that he was taught. Many of the songs featured on the Kora preserve an 800-year history dating back to the founding of the Mande Empire. Gaskell has performed for adult, youth, and family programs at over 350 libraries and a multitude of K-12 schools, colleges, universities, and assisted living facilities throughout the United States and Canada. So please join me in once again welcoming Sean to the Great Falls Public Library.
Good evening. Thanks so much for being here. Before we get too far into this, I'm just going to launch right into a song. This one's called Hamaba Jata. and this one is a 300-year-old tune going back to around the 1720s, named after Hamabajata, who was the king just before then of the Kabu region, which now falls into the present-day country of Guinea-Bissau, which, other than Gambia and Senegal, where I studied the Kora, is one of the other 4 countries where you can now find the Kora being played. So, hope you enjoy it. Kora is a 22-string harp. It has 2 rows of 11 strings that are on either side of a freestanding notched bridge, meaning that that bridge is held there by the tension of all of your strings. So if the strings weren't tight enough, the bridge would just fall off the instrument altogether. together. The very first Kora was built right around the same time that last song was composed in the 1720s. And so the Kora's been around for a little over 300 years. I learned how to play over the course of 4 visits to West Africa, to Gambia and Senegal. I've got 2 teachers in each of those countries. So most of what I play, I learned directly from them over there. And you'll also hear me singing a lot in the Mandinka language. It's the language that I learned to speak in Gambia, thanks to the graciousness of the extended family of my teachers there. And I'll do my best to translate the songs as they go along, and their meanings and their backgrounds. People in Gambia did speak English, so it was quite easy for me to get around there. But in Senegal, mostly being spoken was a combination of Wolof and French, so a lot more challenging for me to get around there. So this next one is called Kora, which means peace. This song was composed on the accordion in Guinea, West Africa, back in the 1960s, and evolved into one of the more popular tunes of the past 100 years. Kora.
How long did it take you to learn this instrument?
Still learning. Yeah. I started back in, 2007, so almost 20 years now. Yeah. I try to go back every now and again. was told two very different accounts of this song. More about Kuyate, my primary teacher in Gambia, that said that this is a song about being away from home in a state of travel, that when you are, you deserve to be well looked after and taken care of. In Senegal, my teacher there, Youssoufa Sissoko, said that this is a folk story about a person and a snake. And that's when physical contact is made between the two, supposedly good things happen for both. So take your pick. when someone constructs one, they always start from the bottom, working up towards the top. So at the base here is a calabash, which is a gourd that grows like a pumpkin. So low to the ground, you pick it off the stem. To use it for the Kora, you cut it in half, just using the handsaw. So once you've got 2 halves of calabash, you then have to scoop everything out. So the ones that I found there, you'd have a lot of seeds and wet, gooey stuff that's in there. So you got to scrape all that out and dry it in the sun for a couple of weeks, maybe more if you're in the monsoon season, which is in the summer months there. And so once you got your half calabash, you would stretch a wet cow skin over the open half. And that gets nailed to the backside here with upholstery tacks. It is very important to apply the skin while it is wet. If it's even slightly dry, it may crack while you put it on, and you just have to, if that's the case, just tear it off and have to put another one on. Getting that on is a lot easier said than done. So you need to make sure that it is wet when you put it on, as I mentioned before. So to do that, you want to soak the skin in a bucket of water overnight. You bring it out the next morning. You wring all the water out as best you can, laying the skin flat on the grounds, and then you take a razor and you just go right over the top of it and shave all the hair off of it. Put it back in the bucket just to rinse it off, wring it out again, and then finally when you put it back on the ground for the second time, that's when you take the rim of your half calabash and you just put it right up and over the top of the skin, like so. And so from that point, you take the skin and you fold it up and over the top side, because initially there's a lot more animal skin that you're working with than what you see here. A lot of it's been cut off at this point. So you pull it, put it up and over the round side, take a knife, and you make holes into the animal skin about where the upholstery tacks are going to go. But these holes are actually for rope. And you take like a 50-foot long or 75-foot long piece of rope and just string it through all the holes back there in order to tighten the animal skin on the front side here. So kind of tight like a drum, even though you never play it as a drum. You want that skin nice and tight because it reacts to whatever the weather is doing. So with a little bit of moisture in the air, like we've got right now, the skin naturally absorbs some of that moisture and it loosens. And when that happens, that's not just the bridge we talked about earlier, being held there by the strings, which they call the bato. The bato then sags into the animal skin when it loosens, taking all 22 of your plucking strings along for the ride. And when that happens, they all loosen, they lower in pitch. And once the rain moves out, the sun comes back, and the air dries out a little bit, especially in a place like this, that skin's going to really tighten up and kick the bato back out the other way to tighten the strings, and that's going to raise the pitch. So it's got the opposite effects. So the tighter you get the skin on at the very beginning means the less movement you're going to have with the bridge during a weather change, and probably less tuning work in the long run, tuning the strings. So, once you've got your rope through all the holes, that's when you go ahead and go in with your upholstery tacks, just nailing them in one at a time. At that point, the tension's all been transferred onto them, so you can cut off the rope by taking a knife, just going right behind the upholstery tacks, taking off the rope, all the leftover animal hide, and that re-exposes the calabash here to exactly what you're looking at. So just to get it to there, with the skin on, and that's a good 8 to 12 hour process right there. At which point, you would go ahead and put your 2 handlebars and your crossbar in. So there's cuts in the animal skin for each of those. And you slide them through. At that point, you would just set that aside. Let it dry in the sun for a couple of weeks. Let the skin dry out. But in the meantime, you can actually prepare the neck to be attached to the Kora. So you find a long piece of wood. We would usually just go to a carpenter. They would even mill it into the length and also into the circular shape that it's in, which you need to have in order for the tuning rings to get wrapped around them. So these are cowhide tuning rings. They call the conso in Mandinka, and they're cut long and thin. While they're wet, and while you've got all of them sitting in front of you, you would take a pair of scissors, cut right down the middle of each of them from both ends until you hit the very middle. You want to leave that middle point intact so that on either side of it you've got 2 halves of rope now. And then you take those and you cross braid them around the neck to get these on. That also has to be done while they're wet. So once they're on, you just cut off whatever you don't need, and those dry. At that point, you go ahead and slide the neck through the calabash. There's 3 holes that you need to cut into the calabash. So there's a hole up top here for the neck, another one right down below that it slides through. And then your 3rd hole there comes there for 2 reasons. The first is so that your sound can come out, and the second is so that money can go in. And, it's a cash deposit hole because a lot of these songs that you hear, if you were to go over there, a lot of these traditional songs are played for people who had some role in the growth or the expansion of the Mandinka Empire, the Mandinka people of which the language that I'm singing in. And so a lot of these folks were like political leaders, army generals, people who fought in battles, people who have places named after them for whatever reason it may be. And a lot of these songs were composed between the 1200s and the 1700s, and they're still played today. So if you go to a performance today and one of these songs is played, and there's someone out in the audience who is maybe a 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th generation ancestor of this very person, or a descendant, I should say, of their ancestor, as the song's being played, it's then their responsibility to come up out of the audience and pay the musicians for calling out their family past. And I'll talk about the significance of that later, because you see it all the time over there. And not to worry, I will not be trying to sing about anyone's family this evening. So you've got your sound hole, you've got your neck holes, the neck is through. So finally, the last thing you do is put your strings on. Holding all the strings together at the bottom is an iron ring. This is a welded piece of rebar, and it slides through the bottom of your neck. You just have to drill a hole through the bottom there, slide it through. Your anchor strings get wrapped around that. And then finally, your plucking strings are first tied to the anchor strings, and then you bring them up and wrap them around the tuners up here. It's a bit tricky getting enough space to get the strings through. You have to take a really sharp, pointy tool like an awl and just stab it into the neck and kind of pry the console, the tuners away just enough to get the string through one time. And you have to do that about 4 or 5 times per string. You've got 4 or 5 loops around, you just tie them off at the end, again, per string. And then as you're pushing these up for the first time to gain tension on the strings and begin to tune them, that's the point where you put your bateau on. And right behind the bateau there is a piece of particle board that's wrapped in a pink cloth. That's there to prevent that bateau from tearing into the animal skin. So all the items of the Kora, talked about the calabash, cow skin. The wood comes from a kano tree, and I've only seen them I've never seen them with my own eyes. They're found mostly in the coastal forest regions of West Africa, which are further south of where I was. Where I was studying was more like a cross between the Sahara Desert and the savanna, if you will. So it was drier, not quite as many trees. And then your plucking strings here are monofilament fishing line. So anywhere between 30-pound and 200-pound test gauge fishing line. So that's been around since the 1920s. Before that, those plucking strings would have been antelope skin, and I've never seen it used. Supposedly, once the fishing line became mainstream, all the Kora builders at the time just transferred over to it immediately because it's so much easier to work with, and it doesn't break nearly as much and just stays in tune a lot easier, cutting down on the overall maintenance of your instrument. And also nowadays, a lot of Kora builders will use a modified tuning system, so rather than using the console here, the cowhide tuners, they'll use the same kind of tuning pegs that you would see on the guitar. And so if you're going to do that, you'd have to drill holes into the neck and just slide your pegs through. Or some people will take the metal bracket pegs that you sometimes see on guitars, and you actually have to fasten them to the side of your neck there. And by doing that, it saves you a lot of time tuning. I'm going to show you how to switch tunings now. So the Kora uses what's in Western music theory terms, it's a 7-pitch diatonic scale. So I'm in the key of G major right now, and there's 4 of the note of G on the Kora. Alright, and so starting with the 2nd G, from there are 6 notes above it in that scale. And then your octave. You got a second one of those. So below those 2 octaves, you've got 4 notes. And above those 2 octaves, you've got 2 notes. And you've got an extra string, the 22nd string, 1st string on the right. You can tune to any of the other strings as you wish. Kora only had 21 strings up until about the 1960s or 1970s. When they started adding the 22nd, the elders at the time really didn't like it. I feel like a lot of them felt like it was taken away from the integrity of the traditional music at the time. But over time, it became a lot more common. I would say over 50% of the Koras that I see now in Gambia and Senegal have a 22nd string. So it's become a lot more common, acceptable, however you want to word it. So I play in 2 specific tunings. There are 4. And so I've been in a tuning called Silaba. Most of the traditional songs in Silaba are composed right along the Atlantic coastline in countries like Gambia and Senegal. Going to south to tuning, where I'm headed here, most of these songs are from further inland, in places primarily like Mali, which of all 6 countries where you can find the Kora, is the largest in terms of land mass. You can actually fit the other 5 Kora countries inside of Mali, so it's that big. And so to switch from Silaba to Sauta, going back to those 7 notes, I have to go to note number 4. And there's only 2 of that pitch on the Kora. And I have to take those up just a little bit. And what I'm doing to do that, there's two things. Downward pressure on the top of the calabash, either with your legs there, or like if I'm able to reach them from this level, I can just put pressure with my elbows there. So that's step 1. And step 2 is you have to release the tension on the backside of these tuners, which is naturally there as a result of the strings pulling at the front of them. So to do that, I'm pushing up on the front side. That releases the backside tension, and then I'm just kind of slowly guiding them into place. And you're not having to move these but a millimeter or so in order to change the pitch altogether. So there's micro adjustments. Trip to Gambia, my teachers began to encourage me to come up with my own songs, so I'd like to share one with you here. I call this one Solmanda, which means morning, like the time of day. And this one came about during a time in my life when I was getting up early in the morning for work to be doing trail maintenance and construction work in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park of Western North Carolina, which is pretty close to where I lived for about 10 years. another tragic story. It's not a true one. It's a folk story. And the name of the tune is called Mali Sajo, coming from Mali. The word Sajo is the word that the Mandinka used for the hippopotamus. And so this story comes from the southwesternmost region of Mali, and they call that the Bafulabe region. And tells a story of a woman that was said to have fallen in love with a hippopotamus. And she nodded rather well. People who play the Kora. They're called griots, L-G-R-I-O-T-S, or ending with a T, griot, singular. They are part of what many people feel is a class system that exists because historically, if you're born in one of the 6 countries where the Kora lives, Your last name would determine the type of work that you do in life. And each type of work, many of which cross over between here and there now, are attached to anywhere between like 2 and 5 family lineages, surnames, and the musicians here, the griots, are no different. And not only are they performing musicians playing in clubs, concert venues, things like that nowadays, but they are also hereditary historians whose responsibility it is to carry forth 800 years worth of history of the Mandinka, dating all the way back to the mid-1200s, so 500 years before the Kora was even around. And nowadays the Kora is a vehicle for them to carry forth that history through a lot of these songs that you hear. When I was in West Africa, I would usually see the Kora played at a few different types of events. One was very casual and laid back, and the other two were quite formal. So once every, a couple times a month, I would say, a griot family would invite 20 up to 40 friends over to their extended family compound. So the word compound there is the word that people there use to describe their homes. Most people lived with 20 to 35 of their extended family members in one home. And so most of them were quite large, and every nuclear family, parents and kids, would have a set of rooms to themselves, and then a lot of them had a central area, which was where a lot of the communal activities would take place, such as this. And the music was more or less the background starting off, but it had quite the tendency to jump out into the foregrounds, and you would usually have a mix of instruments like the kora, and goni, which is a lute. It's about that long. It's got 6 strings. It's played pretty similar to a guitar. And also the balafon, which is a wooden xylophone that's played with one mallet in each hand. Some people sit cross-legged on the ground or on their knees on top of a pad. Others like to stand, so they'll build themselves a wooden frame to bring it up off the ground. Those 3 are the 3 Mandinka instruments, native to, I should say. Historically, they were only played by men. Only recently has that been changing, right around the start of this century here. And I've really noticed that change in my last 2 trips to West Africa, which were to Gambia in 2018, and most recently to Senegal in 2023. It's there where I saw more women, and especially younger girls, learning from their elders, some going out and performing, and having a lot more support from their extended families than I remember before those 2 visits. So it's been an absolutely wonderful change to see over my visits there. And so also weddings and naming ceremonies, you would see this music at. And occasionally there would be some songs that would involve audience participation. So y'all can help me out with this next song here. It's called Tira Makan. 800-year-old tune named for Tira Makan Traore, who was a general in the very first armies of the Mandinka. In fact, his responsibility was recruiting others into these armies. So this is a battle song. With it, there's a call and a response. So I'm going to be singing the call. I'd like your help with the response. And it's 3 words in Mandinka, which mean the enemy was not successful at piercing Tira Makan with a sword. So it's a loose translation. So, to start, could you say each of the 3 words after me, one at a time? First word is Susa.
Susa.
Second word, Rejo.
Rejo.
Third word, the name of the person, Tira Makan.
Tira Makan.
Tira Makan.
Tira Makan.
Good. Now say Susa, Rejo, Tira Makan.
Susa. Rejo. Tira Makan.
Good. All right. So now I'm going to sing those 3 to you. I'd like you to sing them right back to me. And it starts right here. We'll just kind of pass it back and forth to each other for a little bit. Susare jo tira makan.
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 Good. All right. So it's the same 3 words in and time out. And 3 call lines get us to that response. The first call is Amuru Yebam Tiramakan, which means the enemy tried to pierce Tiramakan with a sword. And you come in with Susa Rejo Tiramakan. I'll say Kelike Muru Yebam Tiramakan. Kelike is in the same army, on the same battlefield. He's warning Tiramakan. The enemy sword is about to pierce him. And you come in again, Susa Rejo Tiramakan. Finally, I'll say Ifa Tiramakan, Iba Tiramakan, Yeban, which is it's the father and mother of Tiramakan, are wishing for his safe return home. And we'll come in again. So let's give it a try. It goes. Amuru Yebam Tiramakan, Susa Rejo Tiramakan, Kelike Mu Yebam Tiramakan, Susa Rejo Tiramakan, Iba Tiramakan, Ifa Tiramakan, Susa Rejo Tiramakan, Iba Tiramakan, Ifa Tiramakan, Susa Rejo Tiramakan. Good. All right. Let's put it with the Kora now. So just a little bit about how I got into all this. I first heard the Kora at a music festival in my hometown of Olympia, Washington, which is only about 40 minutes south of where I live now in Tacoma. And so that night, I heard another student of the instrument. His name is Kane Mathis. He lived in Seattle for quite a few years before moving to the East Coast. And I had a little idea that very night that I heard him all the way back in 2006, I would fall in love with the sound of the Kora to such a degree that I would choose right then and there to transition from being a lifelong clarinet player over to this instrument. Not the most common transition from one instrument to another. I talked with Kane Mathis was his name, after the show, and figured out he was willing to teach. So I started going up to his place in Seattle. I was going once every couple of months for about a year and a half, at which point I went back to school to finish up my undergraduate degree. Through that school, also in my hometown, I was able to receive a study contract and a scholarship to go to the Gambia and learn the Kora to earn credit towards my music degree right there in my hometown. And so Kane put me in touch with his teachers in Gambia, Moriba Kuyate, and also his father, the late Malamini Jabate, who I had for my first 2 visits before he passed away a little over 10 years ago now. And went back to Moriba for a 3rd visit in 2018, and then most recently in Senegal, 2023. When I was still living in North Carolina, I received a Arts Council scholarship through the North Carolina Arts Council to go to Senegal and learn new tunes. So it paid for most of the trip to go over and study with a different family. And I was put in touch with them through a Senegalese Kora player who's lived in North Carolina for the last 30 years. So I got connected to him when I was there. He actually came with me on that trip. So I flew from Seattle, he flew from Raleigh, North Carolina, and we converged in Senegal. So it was pretty cool. And I would receive anywhere between 4 and 8 hours of instruction a day. So I could have a lesson in the morning, afternoon, and evening most days. Lots of practice time in between. And on top of that, I was received as if I was one of the family. It was truly one of the most remarkable experiences of hospitality I've ever experienced. The fact that they were willing to take in someone like me from across the Atlantic, show me the Kora, teach me the language, and then go home and be able to share it with folks like you is truly a gift, and it's one that I thank them for. And with that, I thank you for coming tonight. Thank you so much. Before we launch into the last song, I'll let you know I've got some CDs available for sale over here. Any form of payment works. The orange one's $15 and the white one's $20. Cash or check can go right in the plastic tub on the table there. Credit card or debit card, come see me. If you want to use Venmo or PayPal, there's QR codes on the table. You can scan there. If you're like me and you don't have a CD player anymore, both those albums are available in digital form on a platform that's called Bandcamp. And so there's a QR code for that as well. If you'd rather not download the CDs right there on your phone, you can go to your laptop or your desktop computer at home and just go to my website. There's a link for it there, SeanGaskell.com. To the far right, it's all the QR codes for all the different social media sites that I post music to, tour updates, tour schedules, all that. And then there's an email list. I always send out email notifications whenever I'm coming back through the area. So if you'd like to hear me again down the roads, feel free to sign up for the list. And I always like to thank those for making these programs possible, because there's a lot of work that goes into them, and it's really important that we continue to have engaging programs like this in our public libraries throughout the United States. So I just wanted to thank Sarah. The song is called Smoky Mountain Sunsets. Not a traditional tune, if you can imagine. This one was inspired by a backpacking trip. Pretty shortly after I stopped doing trail crew work for the National Park Service. That was about a 10-year segment of my life. This one does stem from a very beautiful sunset that I witnessed on a backpacking trip out there. If you want to have a close look at the Kora on your way out, you're more than welcome to. More than welcome to take pictures, ask any questions. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.